We're going to talk about the fundamentals of nutrition. We're first going to start with the micronutrients and macronutrients. So micronutrients are vitamins and minerals that we need in small quantities. We have vitamins which come from plants, which usually the animals have eaten, and then obviously as we eat them, we get the plant nutrients. So there's like vitamin A, vitamin B, vitamin C, all those ones that you probably heard of before, often like a lot of the time from fruit and veg. We then have minerals which come from inorganic compounds from the earth where we grow our food. This is things like calcium, magnesium, zinc, which once again we do need in quite small quantities, but once again we do need them as a part of our diet. We have macronutrients, which are our main top three. So you have carbohydrates, fats and protein. You have carbs, which for each gram of carbs contains 4 calories. Protein, so each gram of protein contains 4 calories, and then fats, which each gram of fat contains 9 calories. So fat are the highest calorie content for the macronutrient, along with alcohol, which is once again one of the highest as well, which is something we'll talk about in a later video. Talk a little bit more about carbohydrates in more detail, and I'm going to go a bit more further into it in another video. But the main thing you just need to know now for the fundamentals is, like I've just mentioned, each gram of carbohydrate contains 4 calories, and there are different types of carbohydrates within the diet. You have your simple carbohydrates, which are often known as your sugars, so it's things like your honey, sweets and all that kind of stuff. And then you have your complex carbohydrates, which are a lot starchier and slow digesting, so it's things like your potatoes, pasta, porridge, rice, all them kind of things that you tend to incorporate. And then we can have carbohydrates that contain a mix of both simple and complex ones. It's often things like biscuits and them kind of things contain a mix of both. On a whole, you do want more complex carbs in the diet, but there is nothing wrong with containing the simple ones, because the main thing that you are looking for is calories in versus calories out, which we'll talk more about later on. But the main thing you want to look for is incorporating a variety of the two within them, and understanding that there are different types. Often going for your slow digestive ones are good if you're having like a pre-workout meal like 1 to 2 hours before. But if you're having something a little bit closer, like 30 minutes before, you're probably best looking for something that's got a bit more of a simple carb within it. We're then going to talk a bit more about protein, which, like I've just mentioned, again, 1 gram of protein contains 4 calories, just like carbohydrates does. The thing with protein is it's made up of lots of amino acids, which are all these little things within the body. You don't need to know much too about them. But obviously protein is definitely the most important macronutrient out of the 3, the one that you do need to focus upon the most. You're looking to get enough in for your body. On a rough guideline, say that for each 1 kilogram of body weight you have, you want to be having 1 to 1.2 grams of protein. For example, if you are 60 kilograms, you're looking to have about 60 to 80 grams of protein a day to start with, and this can gradually build up to incorporate a bit more of a higher protein diet. With proteins, you have different types. You have complete proteins, which means the complete range of amino acids are there. They've got the adequate amount of each. There's things often like your chicken, so your meats, your fishes, and your eggs, your dairy products like milk, yogurt, etc. And then you have your incomplete proteins, which don't have the adequate amount of amino acids needed. This is when we tend to pair foods together to make complementary proteins, which is often, if you follow like a vegetarian or vegan diet, it's something that you tend to look at, because a complementary protein is when you're trying to put 2 different types to make the full amount of amino acids. So it's often things like putting rice and beans together, which allows the full amino acids to be made and helps with getting the full complete protein. You don't need to worry too much about the type of proteins, mainly just getting enough within the diet and enough whole sources. So something to look at is, like, for each 3 meals you have within the day, trying to have a protein source within it, whether that's having fish or meat with lunch and dinner, or like eggs, milk, yogurt or whatever within breakfast. It's making sure you're just getting enough within the diet to help the most with you. We then have the final macronutrient group, which is the highest in calories, which is fats. So like I also mentioned, 1 gram of fats contains 9 calories, which, as you can see from the others, contains the highest amount of calories for each gram. So they are something that you do need to be aware of within the diet. Yes, you can eat fats, but you do need to know moderation and portion within these, because often you may have too many, which can often lead to actually eating more calories than you once thought. In terms of the types of fats that you have, don't really need to worry about them too much. You've got your saturated fats, your monosaturated fats, and your polysaturated fats. Your monosaturated fats are often known as your healthy fats, so it's things like your olive oil and your avocado. You then have your saturated fats, which is often things in like eggs, meat and all that, and your unsaturated fats, which is pretty much your omega-3 and omega-6. So it's things like your fish oils, your oily fish, your walnuts, nuts like that, which provide them. Obviously, you are looking to incorporate healthy sources into the diet, so looking for things like avocados, peanut butter, nuts, seeds, all that kind of stuff can really help. But once again, you've got to be aware of the amount that you're having. More often than not, you'll see people having like avocado, egg on toast, using a full avocado, using about 600 calories in this one avocado and not realising, because they think this is a healthy food when actually it's got quite a high calorie content to it. So you do need to look at these ones and be aware of your moderation within the fats. But once again, they are a part of a healthy balanced diet, so you do need to incorporate them within. The really important part of nutrition is actually your hydration. So more often than not, you do find that people aren't actually drinking enough water than what their body needs. It's so easy when you're having a busy day to forget about picking up your water bottle and having a drink. So the main thing that you do need to look at, I'd say as a rough guideline, is trying to get about 2 litres of water in a day. Whether that's buying a litre bottle, filling it up twice and making sure that you drink it. One thing that I definitely do recommend to help with your hydration is when you are working out, have water with you. It's probably the time where you are the most thirsty, so you might as well use that and get water down you, and also help keeping you energized throughout the session. Say if you work in an office, make sure you've always got a bottle or a glass of water with on your desk. It's always being refilled so you can keep drinking it. Or if you go out and about, just take a bottle with you. Buy a water bottle so you're not using too much plastic, and take it with you, so you've always got that option that water's there and you're not going to be going 5 hours without water and lead to dehydration, which can then often not only lead to you being low energy, so it might affect your gym session or the amount of activity you do within the day. It can often lead to like headaches and stuff, which can 9 times out of 10 lead to sloppy food choices. So not only is it good for you and your health, but it's also good for all the other things you might be doing in order to reach your goal. And now we're going to talk about energy balance, which is the big one really. So it's basically looking at calories in versus calories out. So the main thing with any goal, whether that's to build muscle, lose weight, maintain, your calories in versus your calories out is the only thing that is going to affect this, because it's the thermodynamics. So you have a calorie deficit, calorie maintenance, and a calorie surplus. So calorie surplus is basically when you eat more food than what you burn, which means you are either going to, if you eat in an excessive surplus, put on weight, or if you do it within like a smaller surplus, it's often used to build muscle, as having more food is one thing that you need in order to build muscle. So within that, it's all right if you are looking at it for that aspect and you reverse dieting up and building those calories up to help build muscle. But if you're in an excessive, for example, 1,000 calorie surplus, you will definitely be putting on the weight simply because you are eating more than what your body's burning within the day. You then have calorie maintenance, which is the amount that you eat in the day is equal to the amount that you burn. So your weight will stay the same because you are not causing an increase or a decrease, you are staying together. And then you have a calorie deficit, which is when you eat less than what you burn. And this is the big one. This is the one that you need in order to lose weight. You need to be in a calorie deficit. It's not going to be eating low carb, more fats, etc., following Slimming World or opting for cutting out pizza, whatever. The thing that you need in order to lose weight, lose body fat, is being in a calorie deficit. And that is the main thing that you actually need. Without that, you will not lose any form of weight. So it's mainly to look at the calories in versus your calories out. This takes me on to my next point of good food versus bad foods. So a lot of the time we have a lot of stigma around certain food that they're labelled in a particular way. For example, salads are often named as healthy and good for you, but as soon as a chocolate bar is thrown into occasion, it's bad for me and unhealthy, which is simply not the case. Yes, some have more nutrients, some have less nutrients, but one food will not make you lose weight as opposed to one going to make you gain weight. It's simply down to the amount that you're eating compared to the amount that you're burning. You'll often see within social media, newspapers, magazines, etc., that foods like pizza, etc. are frowned upon because they're going to cause to weight gain. But the main thing that you need to look at is removing these labels and not seeing foods as good or bad, and just seeing them as food, not seen as anything off limits, but knowing that there's moderation needed within what you're eating. So yes, you can eat pizza and chocolate or go out for some drinks with the girls and still lose weight, as long as it's within that daily or weekly deficit, and it will still happen. So as soon as you remove these food labels, not only can you enjoy yourself a little bit more and make more sustainable results because you're able to actually enjoy your life, it means that you're not going to be in this restrictive mindset with food, which can 9 times out of 10 lead to overeating on the weekend. Let's be honest, you've probably been there. I've definitely been there before, when Monday to Friday you eat like an absolute goddess. You're in really low calories, like 1,200. Yes, I've been there and done that too. You're eating salad, chicken, you know, all the good healthy foods, fueling up on them avocados. But as soon as Saturday and Sunday come round, fuck it. You just let loose, you have a massive takeaway, you go out for a lot of drinks, roll into Sunday morning, you have a big whack off full English to cure that hangover, sleep for a bit, finish a big plate of Sunday dinner, demolish a cheeky dessert, and then you scrape some chocolates off in the evening, but you say it's alright, it's a fuck it weekend because I've been really good in the week. Anything like that is not going to lead to weight loss in the slightest, because you're going from being in a deficit to being 2 extremely high calorie surplus days, which is going to mean by the end of the week that weekly deficit's been thrown out the window because of those extra 1,000 calories that you've had on Saturday and Sunday, so 2,000 on altogether, which is going to mean you're not going to simply be able to. So it's finding things where you can incorporate maybe a glass of wine into a Thursday night, or incorporating a pizza on your Saturday night, or maybe a cheeky biscuit on Monday, because then you're not restricting yourself. You can just enjoy all foods every day and make good results, but have a better relationship with food. We're then going to look at energy a little bit more. So we have our energy intake, which comes from our food and alcohol alone. That's the things that we're eating and the things that we're drinking. It can also include things like, you know, teas, coffees and all that, which obviously do contain calories, and that is also a very good point as well, that you do need to take them into account. So that sugar and that milk that you're having in your tea, it's still calories, so do be aware of that if you are looking at being in your calorie deficit. Liquid calories do count. We've then got our energy expenditure, which is our BMR, which is our basal metabolic rate, which in simple human terms pretty much means the amount of calories that you need to survive. So to say that you were to lay in bed all day, get up, you know, for a few weeks here and there, maybe go downstairs to grab a bowl of cereal, it's the amount of calories that you'd probably burn just from pretty much doing nothing within the day. And obviously you should never be eating below that. So you'll probably see a lot of the time where people are promoting these 1,000 calorie diets, and that is more often than not below your BMR. So definitely don't opt for them, because it's, if anything, it's very unhealthy for you and it's not going to do any good for your body. And in terms of your metabolism alone, it's very much obviously dependent on the individual person that you are in genetics, but it also can be affected by the body composition you have. So if you have more muscle mass, it means that you'll have a higher metabolism, so your body will need more food and more energy when at rest. This is simply because muscle needs more energy as opposed to body fat does. So the more muscle that you have, the higher metabolism you're going to get. So when you're looking at a body composition change, which 9 times out of 10 people are, you want to be toned, which is build muscle and lose body fat. You will tend to find you'll be able to eat more because of that, or your metabolism will up due to. Our metabolism is obviously also affected by our body fat and muscle mass. Obviously we just spoke something about that, but it's another good important thing to remember that that will affect our BMR. We then have exercise, which is things like running, swimming, going to the gym, canoeing if you're down for that life. Not for me, got no lake near me, but all those things where you're making that effort to go out and actually do physical activity, they all do play a part in the amount that you actually need a day to maintain your weight, or when being in a deficit. You then have NEAT, which is your non-exercise activity thermogenesis, which in other words is other things that you do that is not like the gym and exercise. It's things like walking, your steps within the day, you know, if you're running up those stairs at the office at work, if you're fidgeting or you're wiggling around here, there and where every day, tapping your feet, walking to the shop to buy some milk or taking the dog out, that is your NEAT. So it's the extra activity that you're doing within the day. When you combine exercise and add it with NEAT, it leads to the calories that you are burning within the day. So say if you are very active and you go to the gym 4 times a week, you'll be burning more calories. Whereas if you sat down a lot in the office and you don't do any exercise outside, obviously you'll burn a lot less calories. This is important because we can look at both of them two in relation to our BMR to find the amount of calories that we actually need day to day, and we can then look from there how to get in a surplus or a deficit. With steps, it's a very big thing that you often hear a lot about. So pretty much the more that you move within the day, steps pretty much means you'll burn more calories. It's one of the easiest things that you can do to help with losing weight, whether it be walking upstairs more, etc.